A very good evening and welcome to Wednesday's episode of The State of Scottish Football. If you don't know me by now, no, I'm not Mick Hucknall, I'm Greg Playfair. And joining me on tonight's show is a man who can't even walk down the streets of Dundee without being recognised. Hello, Dave Smith.
Good evening, Greg. Hope you're well.
Yeah, good, thank you. And joining us tonight and completing the trio is a woman who is a former, has to be stressed, a former member of the Tony Watt fan club. Hello, Jenna Thompson.
Hello, Greg.
Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, not bad still. Reeling from Mr. Watt being mentioned, but I'm sure I'll get over it eventually.
Yeah, this is almost like a free therapy session. We will get to that at some stage in the next hour. As always, we're live on all the various platforms, so please do get involved by commenting, and we will do our best to respond and react throughout the next hour. As always, when Dave and I are on, we do get some outlandish comments, so I'm sure tonight will not be surpassed in terms of what comes our way. So, yeah, be kind as always. But, of course, there were 10 top-flight teams playing last night. And, of course, as the title suggests as well, we're going to start with the action up in Pittodrie. So it finished 1-1 with Aberdeen and Rangers, with the Govan outfit taking the lead through Yanis Hadji after 20 minutes before the drama, midway through the second half. So Lewis Ferguson equal from the Dons from the penalty spot on the 73rd minute mark. Ultimately, Rangers did finish the match with 10 men after Ryan Kent picked up his second booking, where, as we see in the strapline, he did get taunted on his way off by a certain Scott Brown with 7 minutes left to go. Dave, I'm going to come to you first. What did you make of the match last night? As a draw, a fair reflection of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be a good point for Aberdeen. I mean, there's a little bit of disappointment from Stephen Glass's side that they didn't pick up all 3 points in total, because they had enough chances and enough impetus about them to go and pick up all 3 points. But a point against Rangers is always a good result. Aberdeen have that sort of mentality where they need to go and compete against the big Glasgow 2. And when they're drawing or winning against the big Glasgow 2, it's hailed as a success for a lot of Aberdeen fans. Obviously, Rangers got off to a good start last night, scored through Hadji. But then Aberdeen got a response, courtesy of Ferguson, as we alluded to. But obviously, during the complexion of the match, there's maybe a little bit of frustration from Aberdeen, frustration over maybe not getting a penalty after Ryan Hedges was obviously fouled by Al McGregor. So there's disappointment, frustration on that part. Stephen Glass was quite rightly infuriated afterwards when he spoke to media and indeed the radio. And yeah, I mean, we had enough chances to go and win the game from an Aberdeen persuasion. And obviously, Ryan Kent gets sent off. And I must say, I don't think, in terms of the challenge game, I don't think it's a red card or a yellow card challenge. I think it's the way Scott Brown manages the situation, which I think is very clever.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll kind of go back to Rangers opener for yourself, Jenna. So it obviously was controversial after the goal did come from a counter-attack from an Al McGregor foul on Hedges. What's your view on the incident? Stephen Glass, as Dave was saying, said in his post-match comments that he feels it was a penalty and ultimately it kind of cost them perhaps winning the game. Or do you feel Aberdeen are right to feel aggrieved?
We're getting controversial right from the start tonight, geez. Well, I can see why the call for the penalty was there. I mean, McGregor ran out, the player went down, it was in the box. I think, to be honest, was it Stephen Glass that said if there was VAR, it would have been awarded? Or am I thinking of the Ferguson penalty? Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of says it all, doesn't it? It seems to be, week in, week out, a ref's decision either to give a penalty or they've gave a penalty, it shouldn't be a penalty, and vice versa. Almost is always the discussion of a match afterwards, either for better or for worse, depending if it's your team it's went in favour of the decision of. And I think that says quite a lot. I know a lot of people buy into this idea that, oh, it's a conspiracy, all refs are Rangers fans, all refs are Celtic fans, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think it should have been a penalty. See, I watched it back a couple of times. At first I wasn't sure, but he's ran out. I don't think it was an intentional strike, don't get me wrong. But I still think it should have been. He went down the box. It's kind of standard when you think about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting in terms of the whole Celtic kind of Rangers comments. Again, we'll come on to the Hearts game later on. But even sort of the referee in that game, I don't think he was that great, but I don't think he necessarily shown a bias towards a certain team. He was just not very good. But that's a debate for another day. Dave, again, for you, penalty on the foul on Hedges for you?
well, I'm a generic Scottish football fan here, so I'm not going to be biased about this, but I think it's fair to say that it was a penalty. I mean, McGregor comes out firing, comes out all guns blazing. Ryan Hedges tries to obviously commit. He's well aligned with the goalkeeper, and then obviously he gets fouled on the lead up to the potential attack, and any other referee would give that a penalty. Obviously, Scott Brown and Kevin Clancy having a wee laugh at the end of the game, but I think in its total entirety, I don't think they should really be laughing after the end of the game, because I mean, Kevin Clancy turned down what was a Stonewall Aberdeen penalty, and a lot of the comments are already suggesting that it should have been an Aberdeen penalty. So from an Aberdeen persuasion, it's very frustrating. But going back on the game as a whole last night, Greg, I think it was good for Aberdeen to go out all guns blazing, be on the attack, be on the front foot, exposing Rangers at every opportunity. I mean, Derek McChrist was in that Sky Sports box last night. Would we have seen that with him? I'm being a bit brutal here, but no, we wouldn't.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's funny going back to the challenge as well. I remember a game, and again, I'm going to out myself a little bit here. I went along to a Hibs Rangers game at Ibrox, got a free ticket. Again, I support neither team, and I remember McGregor made almost an identical challenge on Mark McNulty and cleaned him out and got sent off for it. And that's when Ross McCrory went in goals for Rangers as well. So, like, McGregor has got this in his locker and he knows what he's doing. From what I can see, again, it's one of those where I certainly, if it was my team, I'd be definitely looking for a penalty. And if it was given against me, would I have too many complaints? Absolutely not. Again, I know our keeper at Hearts is Craig Gordon. Craig Gordon's done similar in the past for Celtic colours as well. But you know, it's one of those where the ref hasn't given it, and Rangers did go up and score. And again, probably we're saying from the comments here, very, very unfair for Aberdeen. But Dave, I'll stick with yourself. Rangers will rue not taking their chances, because obviously on the 73rd minute mark we did see Alfredo Morelos concede a penalty against him. Again, the handball, I know there was some Rangers fans saying on some of the Rangers forums and media that it's unfair, but again, for you, is that a penalty?
I would say so, yes. And I mean, Colin Waterfell, contributor, said it was their first penalty since 2019, if I'm not getting my years middled up there. But definite penalty for me. Lewis Ferguson tucked it away for Plum. I mean, I know the Sun have came out and said today that that penalty shouldn't have been given, but being an Aberdeen fan, I'm not going to obviously read the Sun, and I'm not going to pay attention to what they say, because it's a good point for Aberdeen. So there you go. It's a penalty.
A penalty. Jenna, do you agree?
I agree. I mean, it's kind of goes back to what I was saying. If it's handball, you can't really argue it too much unless... But even I was going to try argue there, but I watched it back. It's a stonewall in my eyes. I don't really get why there was the calls for it to be retaken if VAR was a thing. I don't know if that's maybe Giovanni Van Bronckhorst just being a bit unhappy that somehow someone's been awarded a penalty against Rangers. Didn't think it was possible, not going to lie. But I don't know. I don't see the calls for retake, to be honest.
Yeah, there was a sort of in-joke in our group chat around the warning of a penalty sweepstake. We kind of expected it to be for Rangers. I think that's kind of been their most prolific tweet this season. Obviously last season it was penalty and James Tavernier scoring from them, obviously when there was no fans in the stadiums. But yeah, you're right, it's a bit of a surprise seeing a penalty against them. And again, I'll stick with you, Jenna. Obviously Aberdeen were up and at them, probably, you know, played the sort of game in which, again, I'll go back to when Hearts played them at Tynecastle. Again, I know Rangers got the early goals, but they were kind of aggressive up against them. Although then Ryan Kent was sent off for two bookable offences. Do you think that kind of summed up Rangers' night almost, that it just really wasn't going for them?
Yeah, I mean, before the game, as soon as I realised they were playing Aberdeen, immediately I was like, right, either Morelos, Kent, or Broony's going to get either booked straight away or sent off. Because, let's be honest, I know Broony's not a Celtic player anymore, but he's always going to have that legacy attached to him. And I knew it would just turn into a kicking match between the Rangers players and him. But he'd love it, let's be honest. I'm not meaning that as a, Broony was targeted, the poor soul. I don't mean it that way. He probably loves it, let's be honest. He'd relish in that type of thing. You've seen him taunting Kent, which is the title of this episode. Aberdeen really grew into the game, I don't know if maybe that's simplest off Scott Brown. Is he definitely coaching the first team, or is it?
He's a player coach.
Player coach. So if he's involved with the coaching styles for the men's first team as well, you could maybe add into that atmosphere. Like, they know what they're going to be like. That's because I'm here. Let's play on it. Let's get them going. Kind of roughhouse them a little bit if needed, but more at the point, let's show them that just because we're not Celtic and people might always say can't get a good result against them, let's prove them wrong. Let's get a good result tonight, boys. And they've put their heart and soul into it after that first goal was scored. I think that was a really big wake-up call they needed.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And obviously for you, Dave, it's probably strange, looking at this now, where you are very much cheering and loving everything that Scott Brown does in terms of in an Aberdeen jersey, because for so long for Hibs and Celtic, you're probably dead against them. We see that in terms of players winding each other up. I know there's been a lot of fanfare kind of made, mostly from the blue half of Glasgow, in terms of Scott Brown winding Kent up. Is that something you enjoy of the game? Players can have that bit of banter?
Yeah, before I answer your question, I made a mistake. It was the first red card that Rangers have picked up since 2019. First league red card, that is, not the first penalty conceded. So apologies to the viewers. I got that one wrong. I'm usually doing my homework in that regard. But on your original point about Scott Brown, and I'm a big. My philosophy is a bit old school in terms of how players operate, and what Scott Brown does on a regular basis is something that's missing from our game nowadays. So I'll lap up every possible opportunity. And what he did when in the aftermath of Ryan Kent getting sent off was just a joy to watch it. And I mean, some people might look at this another way, but from my persuasion, Scott Brown is an old school midfielder. His mentality is absolutely magnificent. He's not one thing at Celtic for no given reason. So for me, he's done good things at both Celtic and Aberdeen. And when he was at both Celtic and Hibs, he wasn't a player that was that I looked at and said he's a bully or whatever have you. He was a player because it's kind of my mentality. I like that, right? Even though it was against Aberdeen, you'd have appreciated that and went, we need somebody like that. Finally, we've got this man. And he helped in terms of a big result for Aberdeen Football Club last night.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at in terms of what this does for the league now, Rangers missed opportunity to go 6 points clear. Obviously, I know Celtic kind of played the night before, so the gap is sitting at 4 points. With the Celtic and Rangers game coming up in a fortnight's time tonight, what does that result do in terms of the momentum? I'll come to you first, Jenna. We've seen Rangers obviously previously suffer a post-winter break hangover. I know obviously the sort of next 3 games for both sides, for Celtic and Rangers, you would say Celtic have a tougher run in to that game, but does that kind of add a bit of pressure in terms of Rangers' 4-point lead at the top? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, they'll be trying to clinch on to that with like the last bit of willpower. I mean, 4 points is not a lot. You think about that's a win and a draw, and it could easily crumble for them. Say something happens to Celtic and they lose the next 2 matches, or they just get 2 draws, just for hypotheticals here. And then they face Rangers again, say around about the same results. That could determine potentially the rest of the season, because it's very rare, as I was saying earlier, clubs outside of the big Glasgow 2 can take points off Celtic and Rangers. It's just more harder to do. I've seen that very much firsthand as a Motherwell fan myself, which I hate to admit when it comes to Old Firm, but it's those 3 or 4 games a season that determines who's going to come out on top. The games in between absolutely matter, especially on up to an Old Firm game, but at the end of the day, for those 2 sides, those are the games that matter. And whoever walks out of that, I think will have bragging rights for like the next 2 weeks until it can get rectified. We've seen Rangers' downfall in the 1920 season, just before COVID, where like they went and got absolutely beat off Hartland. They really went a downward spiral. Don't get me wrong, still staying second, so it wasn't completely horrendous for them. But if that comes round again, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will have a lot of questions for his players.
Jenna, I'm going to advise not to read the comments for the next 5 minutes because you mentioned Old Firm, which can be a very divisive 2 words on this particular podcast as well. Yeah, let's start as we need to go on. Dave, I'll come to you and get your thoughts on the same question here. Obviously, Rangers, again, they've got Stirling at home in the Scottish Cup. They've got Livingston at home, and then Ross County away before they play Celtic. But psychologically, after the performance from Celtic on Monday night against a strong Hibs side, do you think this can add to pressure for Rangers and give us a bit more of a title race?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think the panic stations will be, or the panic button will be hit at Rangers Football Club immediately. I think obviously it's a good point, Pittodrie, disappointment. Obviously, not picking up all three for the standard and calibre of that football club. But also, from a Rangers persuasion, was it a defeat? And that's the main thing. They're still in the driving seat at the top of the league. But the main thing is making sure they don't get a cup embarrassment Friday evening when Stirling Albion, of course, visit Ibrox. And obviously Livingston and Ross County, you look at both those games and say tough assignments, but one they should be looking to get 6 points out of, and then that sets them up very well for the Glasgow derby against Celtic. But then they're up against the Celtic side that are rejuvenated, have a little bit of resurgence about them, and there's a Celtic side that brushed Hibernian aside comfortably in the end 2-0 on Monday night. Hibs scored a good start in that game, but once Celtic got the ball rolling and were comfortable in the game, there was no turning back for Ange Postecoglou's side, and they're in a really good place right now, and they've still got a lot more business to do in the transfer market, as do Rangers. From a Rangers persuasion in the transfer market, it's about getting the right people in, which is why I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has taken a calm approach right now. Whilst for Ange Postecoglou, he's getting players in, and they've been linked with another player today, obviously. So he's not settling back, and he's wanting more. And it's set up to be a fantastic game on the 1st of February when both sides meet.
Yeah, definitely. It's a game I'm eagerly looking forward to as well. You did touch on transfers business. I know Celtic have been active today. We will, towards the end of this, once we've done the roundup from the games, we'll look at transfer news coming out of football today. But again, just obviously Rangers' next game is at home to Stirling, Aberdeen at home to Edinburgh City. Again, I know they'll do a preview show on Friday. I don't know who's going to be on that, but you expect to see Rangers and Aberdeen in the hat of the next round of the Cup, surely, Jenna?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's no offence to the lower league sides, of course, definitely not. But I mean, if you're looking at it from a Premiership point of view, that's a walk in the park. That's an easy 3-4, nothing short, if not well more.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's going to be any shots, Greg, it'll be either Celtic beats Johnstone or Dumbarton beating Dundee.
Oh, Dave, it's like you've seen the agenda for tonight, because that's a good segue to the next game we're talking about. So we are going to move down from your neck of the woods to my own neck of the woods, and it gives me great delight in talking about Hearts 2, St Johnstone 0. So after a goalless first half, Josh Nelly put the Tynecastle side ahead after 19 seconds of the restart following a Barry Mackay pass, and on 75 minutes it was those two men that combined again with helping the build up from Michael O'Halloran clattering Nadir Chishti off the ball, which did put the game to bed. I was there last night, and I think the game wasn't necessarily a great watch to spell. It wasn't a great watch in spells for a neutral, especially for Saints boss Cam Davidson, who of course we will talk about in a second. But Jenna, I'm going to stick with you and sticking with Hearts. A clean sheet, a win, and 8 points clear of fourth place. Robbie Nielsen must be a very satisfied man.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the fact that Motherwell lost as well is going to be extremely helpful for them, since we are sitting underneath them in fourth. It is a really good result for them, but I must say I'm kind of worried for St Johnstone and Callum Davidson. I mean, I said this the other week there when I was on the show, is that how can you go from winning 2 cup doubles to bottom of the table in the space of just one season? I don't think Callum Davidson should be in too much trouble in terms of his job position, but the board really needs to ask some questions as to what's going on. Is it the players that are causing issues? Is it the coaching staff? Something really needs to figure that out, because it's looking kind of dire for them.
Yeah, and we'll get on to St Johnstone in a second, but I think, Dave, coming to you, I know kind of prior to the game, I know there was a lot of intrigue as to whether Robbie Nielsen would select John Souttar in the match, would he be involved in the squad. He started, and it was like panto season last night in Gorgie, as the future Rangers man was booed in sheer and equal measures. So I was going to ask you, was it the right call? Obviously, the fact that Hearts have won the match, clean sheet, you would say so, but going to put you kind of under the spot a wee bit here, but as a supporter, how would you have reacted in a similar scenario? Would you have wanted like John Souttar to play? Would you have booed? Would you have cheered? What's your own take on it?
I'll answer the question in a minute, and I'll tell you why I'll answer the question in a minute. Rangers striker Alfredo Morelos has been called up by Colombia and will miss the Glasgow derby in 2 weeks' time.
Who had 90 minutes past 6 for our exclusive by Dave? That's what you're known for, Mr. On the button with the news.
But anyway, back on to the original point. And yeah, I mean, John Souttar, it was a massive game for him last night. The highlight was understandable on him. I was listening to Radio Scotland off mics last night, and any time he was touching the ball, I was listening to start the game, and obviously all the Michael Stewarts and all these guys were obviously speaking about the whole situation. And every time John Souttar was on the ball, he was on the ball quite a few times in the early stages of that match. He was always getting booed. And I mean, if I was in your position, Greg, and being a Hearts fan, I'd have probably I wouldn't have booed him, but I'd have been a little bit sensitive towards his approach. I'd have been what I would have done, being a sensible figure that I am, is I'd have wanted them. I'd have given them the whole entitlement of trust in terms of wanting to have a good game and all that kind of stuff. But then I probably wouldn't have slaughtered him on social media at the end of the game if he played absolutely rubbish. So it works swings and roundabouts. I mean, he was always going to get booed. I mean, the whole situation regarding John Souttar and Rangers Football Club wasn't exactly welcomed by certain sections of the Hearts fans, and understandably so. What does this mean for Hearts? I mean, they got a clean sheet against Johnstone, who don't have the best of form just now, but it's a good win, especially for Robbie Neilson, Heart Movie Football Club, especially what's happened with John Souttar.
Yeah, good. And some of the comments here, I know obviously fans are asking if it was in their position, if they had a player at their team that signed a pre-contract to a rival, and Jim Collins, I would never be one of my own players, and I think that's kind of something that I would say most supporters of any club would be like. But obviously you do get a minority, and sometimes on social media the minority can kind of break through. Even I think for John Souttar's coffee business as well, has been getting some negative reviews on TripAdvisor, people slating it, although you're not one of them, Dave. You enjoyed the cup of coffee when you were there, I believe.
Yeah, I was at Tynecastle in November to speak to Craig Levine and John Robertson. And no, Tynecastle's a lovely stadium, Greg.
I'm meaning John Souttar's place. I'm saying John Souttar's business is getting slated on TripAdvisor by people saying the coffee's rubbish and tastes a bit snaky, etc. But you enjoyed the coffee, didn't you?
Well, it was a cracking cup of coffee at Tynecastle as well, so that's why I mentioned Tynecastle. John Souttar's place in it is a cracking cup of coffee as well, yes. So works both ways. Hearts are very accommodating.
Yeah, good. We'll stick with Hearts just now before we move on to St Johnstone. But Jenna, in the first half, Hearts did have 2 claims for a penalty, one for Josh Neely and one for that man John Souttar. Do you think either should have been awarded?
I'm not sure, Thomas. I watched them a couple of times back in the highlight show because I missed the Hearts game last night, and I'm still quite undecided. I can see why there was calls for it. I can see why there wasn't. Honestly, I think I need to watch it back a third or fourth time. It is kind of hard for me to tell. You can see the player went down, but I don't know. I'm finding it hard to tell, to be honest.
Yeah, if we're going with the barometer of trial by sports scene, I think was it McFadden last night had said he thought Ginnelly and Ricky Foster as well, I think, but Ricky Foster has a bee in his bonnet about the referee giving a penalty against him for a Partick Thistle game, so take his opinion with a pinch of salt. But Dave, coming back to yourself in terms of Josh Nelly's name's on the score sheet for having scored 2 goals, although Barry Mackay, for me and a lot of others in attendance last night, was Hearts' man of the match. How impressed have you been with Barry Mackay this season?
Yeah, he was a player that a lot of people in Scottish football obviously knew about, but after spells at other clubs prior to joining the Hearts, it was one of those that you'd judge it with both hands and go, is it going to work? And so far it has. I mean, being honest, Barry Mackay does suit the way Hearts playing, and that's a massive benefit to both parties. So yeah, Barry Mackay's had a very good start. He's a player with a lot of tenacity on the ball. He's a player that will go and expose defenders, and he's a player that will just go and hurt defenders and leave defenders for dead. So yeah, he's had a fantastic impact so far at Tynecastle. Long may that continue from his perspective.
Yeah, and obviously from my perspective as well, he's a lot better than I remember him playing for Rangers. Again, I'm going to probably get pelters in the comments from our viewership, but yeah, he was certainly better than what I remember. He ended up getting his Scotland cap as well. But again, he was down at sort of Fleetwood and Nottingham Forest, Swansea down there, but he came back and certainly last night he was by head and shoulders, and that's no pun intended because of his long, luscious locks, but head and shoulders above every other player on the pitch last night. Moving to the sort of comments from Robbie Nielsen and Aussie midfielder Cammy Devlin, they both said in post-match interviews that Hearts players are looking up the table and looking towards the top end. Now, they're 8 points ahead of Motherwell in fourth, 9 points behind Celtic, with a game coming up against them next week. So, a question for you both. I'm not going to say our Hearts going to challenge for the title. I don't think it's going to happen. But the question being is, at this moment in time, where would you expect Hearts to finish up come the end of the season? Obviously 8 points ahead of fourth. A sore run for Jenna, so I'll come to Dave first. Where do you expect Hearts to finish now come the end of the season?
I can't see them giving up in the first third.
Finish third. Jenna, have you kind of given up hope as a Motherwell supporter of getting third, or do you think there's still a long way to go yet?
There's still a long way to go. I mean, it's only January. There's still about 3-4 months worth of the season left. I'd taken my Claret and Amber glasses off. I do think you guys will be about third, fourth. But again, it just takes for us to have a couple of bad runs of games and we are back down the bottom of the table, whereas Hearts have actually been quite strong this season. You've done a lot better than I expected you to do when you came back up. I will hold my hands up to that one. I didn't think you would be going into this season as well as you did, so fair play to Hearts for that one, but I can see he's been third or fourth. Ideally about fifth or sixth, so I'm
Yeah, especially for Aberdeen Hibs fans and whoever else going on. I know there was a comment from our own Craig Leach saying that the guy in top left is a closet Hibs fan, which of course is definitely not the case. Again, obviously last time was a fact that Robbie Nielsen, when Hearts got promoted first time around, we did finish third the first season after promotion, so hopefully that's an omen that strikes twice. But whilst things are looking rosy for the Jambos, Callum Davison had said his St Johnstone side are in a quote crisis. 8 months on from being double cup winners, the Perth outfit have scored just 11 league goals in 21 games in the Premiership. The last victory came 9 games ago against Dundee United just before Halloween. Jenna, it's a pretty scary period for St Johnstone. Do you think they're the favourites to go down?
Absolutely. I mean, I just can't believe it. I mean, they were doing quite well. They were kind of top 6, always round about that area at the end of the season. Again, you win the cup double. To go from that to this, I mean, I was saying it earlier, I've said that a good couple of times on the show. I'm desperate to know what has went wrong. I mean, it's for Callum Davison to even come out and say the team is in a crisis. You don't just say that lightheartedly, especially to the press as a manager. That's usually something you'd keep behind closed doors. So I think that kind of shows how serious this actually is. If they do go down as well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe not everyone is as petty as each other with this, but I think it will be a bit of a thing that football fans will get a right laugh out of, because how can you go again from cup doubles to now being in the championship in the space of one season? Different if it had been kind of a gradual snowball effect, whereas like maybe this season they finished like 8th or something, and then next season like 10th to like in the playoffs, just missed it, and then went down like the season after that. But this has just went from one extreme to another. I mean, I don't want them to go down, don't get me wrong. I've actually liked St Johnstone after the double as well. Got a little bit of I can't even speak today. Got a little bit of a soft spot for them, but I don't think it's looking good. I think them and potentially Dundee or Livingston could be potentially ones that go down.
Dave, as a man who's been to a good number of games, or I've seen a lot of St Johnstone this season, where do you think it's went wrong for Callum Davison's side?
Yeah, start off with losing McCann and Kerr was huge losses for St Johnstone, because if you look at comparisons in terms of when they play against the Brough in the Premier Sports Cup to when they played, the last time I've seen them at home to Ross County just before Christmas was chalk and cheese. Back in August, you were eating a bit of steak, and before Christmas, it was a bit of sausage roll that was left over before Christmas. So that's how unfortunate it got, and how it capitulated in a short space of time for St Johnstone Football Club. But Not only that, the Cam Davidson ultimately hasn't taken an out-and-out striker. Stevie May will score the occasional goal. Chris Kane the same. Nadia Chiefcheese came in, but I don't think he's the correct answer to what they need at this precise moment in time. And going on to Jenna's point, I think Johnstone will be in the bottom three. I say three because I don't want to go and tell you accurate numbers, or else I'll get slaughtered right now. But I think a lot of this will depend on if there's any managerial changes at Dens Park soon, because we'll get on to it, but there's a lot of Dundee fans very much infuriated with their current boss.
Yeah, I mean, my hot take from that is we're going from steak to sausage roll. I'm just picturing Callum Davidson eating a can of out-of-date spam come May time, just trying to keep us in the league. But again, I kind of disagree with one of the points in terms of Chief G. So I think for me, the defence, obviously, for St Johnstone hasn't been very well. Jamie McCart last night looked an absolute shadow of the player he was last season. I think Cleary came in last night. He might be an answer for Kerr. But I think if I was Callum Davidson, I would go to a flat back four. Again, whether that's Rooney coming in as well, almost can be a sort of defensive three. But Michael Halloran playing right wing back is not the answer. I thought the young lad Cameron McPherson played quite well. He's controlling the first half from a high ball. He's a good player. I think he has the potential. Surprise that Mirren let him go, but I don't know if there's an option to make it permanent. But he's good. If I was Davidson, I would go with a flat four, have that three in the middle, and then have your two, or you could have someone's playing in behind Nadir Chifchi. I think if you have O'Halloran, you've got Middleton, you've got pace. You think back to Nadir Chifchi at Dundee United, he done well as that lone striker role. I thought he looked kind of surprisingly okay, better than I thought, a bit more mobile. He just didn't have the match fitness. And a player I'm going to throw at these both in terms of who I think would be a great signing for St Johnstone to get them back up the table is Scott Allen. I think Scott Allen would do well right off Nadir Chifchi. Again, if you've got like a McPherson and I don't know if it was was it Butterfield or whatever his name is, taken off, as a sort of defensive midfielder. But I think that's probably someone who could come and do a job. Scott Allen, which again, he's kind of looks like his days at Hibs are kind of over. But looking at St Johnstone's next game, I'll kind of ask you both. You mentioned it there, Dave. Kelty away in the cup. Kelty obviously flying high at League Two. Do you think a cup upset is on the cards, Jenna?
I hope so. I love the drama that comes with it. I'm not going to lie to you, just as a fan, I love it. But again, I'd feel really bad for St Johnstone if that happens. I mean, Kelty have been really good. They've obviously just got promoted to proper HBFL last season. To go from the Lowland League straight to the top of League Two, I can see them easily breezing through League One and potentially even becoming a solid championship side, if not League One side, if maybe they do go up and finish like second or third next season. But if it might just take a cup upset to kind of make the St Johnstone board decide whether or not if they want Cam Davidson to stay or not. I think he should stay personally. Because, I mean, you can't just sack your manager after he wins 2 doubles for you. But at the same time, something seriously needs to change. And if it's not signings, then I think that's the only other logical way to go about it.
Yeah, you're saying things need to change. Next 3 games for St Johnstone, I said that cup game against Kelty, Dundee at home, and then Aberdeen away. It's going to be tough, isn't it, Dave?
That's a big 3-game window, that, for St Johnstone. I mean, if they could beat Saturday, that's the pressure big time on Carl Davidson. And obviously they've got Dundee next Wednesday, which if Dundee go win that, it would be Dundee's first victory at McDermott Park since 2018, which would be quite a come going within itself. And I mean, that would put massive pressure on Callum Davidson. And then obviously Aberdeen, they've picked up a bit of a resurgence of late with some. They've still been a bit hot and cold results-wise, but they have started getting some positive results, such as what they got last night. So it's a big 3-game window for St Johnstone. I think in 10 days' time, it gives us a bit bigger conclusion as to where St Johnstone are at right now.
Yeah, definitely. We are going to stay in the H postcode and talk about that team directly above St Johnstone in the league. Dundee had their trip to the Spaghetti Had, which ended in a 2-0 defeat to the hands of Livingston. Bruce Anderson got his 6th and 7th league goals of the season. Jenna, it was a night of surprising results in the Premiership, but was this one that you seen coming?
No, to be honest. I mean, a lot of results last night did come as a shock. I mean, Aberdeen drawn with Rangers. Again, as I was saying earlier, it's not easy to take points off the Old Firm. St Mirren coming back as well. I didn't realise how bad St Mirren's win record was this season until I realised it was Jim Goodwin's first win since October time. And again, that's another manager. It's like, should he not be coming under quite a lot more scrutiny? I mean, I've hardly seen any upsets about this with Jim Goodwin. I thought there'd be a lot more on social media. I follow quite a lot of St Mirren page. Have been surprised about that. Then obviously Motherwell's result last night, which I'd still rather not talk about. But I mean, St Mirren did like really well. I mean, I watched the goals back. Some of them were amazing. I couldn't quite catch who scored. It was Eamon Brophy that scored the first one.
Yeah, we'll come on to the St Mirren game. Obviously, that one's kind of later on. That's the last one where we can dig your claws into Tony Watt. But Dave, obviously, Livingston kind of picking up from where they were before the break when they can have a good bit of form. The break maybe came at the wrong time, but Martindale will be happy with that, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, fantastic result for Livingston. And the only disappointment from Olivia Persuasion is the fact that they maybe didn't get more goals because they were on the front foot. They were good to watch now. And Bruce Anderson was a little bit grieved not to get a hat-trick in the end before coming off with injury there. And yeah, fantastic performance for Livingston. Did their jobs right. Go to Dundee to fairly few opportunities. Infuriated Mr. James Papick, and 2 goals from Bruce Anderson. A good evening's work for him. And I was pretty intrigued to read David Martindale's comments regarding Bruce because he says that he's a typical number 9 striker, which I found very interesting and probably do agree with him. I don't think there's a lot of number 9 strikers out there now, and he's that. He kind of compared him in a similarity type of direction to Ali McCoist and Chris Boyd. I can kind of agree with that because he is one of those players that will stick in a box, he'll hunt defenders down. And he did that last night with his 2 goals, which is ultimately, as you alluded to, his 7th goal this season. And fantastic evening's work for the striker who used to play at Aberdeen, of course. Now, he does frustrate a lot of people, I'm not going to lie to you about that. But also, I made the point to a lot of people last night after this that he plays well if there's another striker up front with him. Andrew Sheeny is not a striker, but he's a good number 10. Loves to go at spot on last night. The likes of Fontaine and the other defender, I forgot who the other defender was, but they had Dundee all over the shop, and Bruce Anderson took his 2 goals well. So a good evening's work from his point of view.
Yeah, I think you're right there in terms of having someone play off him. Last season at Hamilton, he had Ross Callahan kind of done that similar role, and they both had a kind of fruitful partnership as well. Again, alas, not enough to keep Aki's up last season, but both players kind of got good moves to Premiership sides on the back of that. Jenna, we're going to turn our attention to Dundee here. Obviously, the boss, James McPake, said after the match that his, quote, senior players let him down in the defeat. How do you think the players will react to that? Was that a fair comment after the performance last night?
I think it has been. I mean, again, Dundee's kind of skirting around the bottom after having a really good season last season. So, again, it's the same with St Johnstone. Something's clearly went wrong. I know you could argue all day about what one's kind of a bigger achievement, a cup double, like winning a league title, even if it is the championship. But again, when you come up, you kind of expect your players to kind of live up to the expectations, especially as their manager. And if he's saying that his senior players have let him down, then could you not also argue that that's a reflection of him as a manager now? Because they were playing under his direction, his coaching plans, his attacking strategies. It's kind of like a snake in its own tail. You can be mad at the players all day as a manager, and they can be mad at you. But at the end of the day, it's up to the manager to change it, not just the players. Sure, they can play better, put more effort in, but you need to motivate them to want to do that.
Yeah, it's a bold call, kind of calling out your players' experience, because a lot of that side is experienced. Like say Charlie Adams, Liam Fontaine, as you mentioned. You've got Paul McGowan, guys like Danny Mullen, even Paul McMillan. They're not guys under 21, 22. So is aiming for a lot of these players. Dave, I know you're a man with your finger on the pulse and all things kind of at the Dens Park. So I'm not going to ask you kind of your thoughts on that, but looking at it, a few of us on this podcast on different episodes have said kind of the midfield three picks itself with Max Anderson. Obviously, you've got Charlie Adam and Paul McGowan. You've got Luke McCowan and Paul McMillan on the wings and Danny Millen up top. I think kind of most people outside looking in, that's a kind of settled team, but it's defensively it's been the Achilles heel for James McPake this season, because his side have conceded 39 league goals, the most in the league in 21 games. That's almost 2 goals conceded every game. Surely, when you're going into each game thinking you need to score 3 goals to win, that's got to be an area James McPake has to address in the transfer window.
Yeah, I'm going to go on Jenna's point before I start here by saying I don't think it was the first time that James McPake chucked his players under a bus, because he did exactly the same thing after the game with St Johnstone. So it's not the first time he's chucked his players under the bus from that point of view. But on your point about your question, and yes, I mean, Dundee have got a good nucleus, a good team. They showed it at the start of the season when they played the likes of Hibs and drew 2-2 in a game they probably could have went and won. Charlie Adam in the ball, showing a lot of passes, playing a lot of good balls, showing a lot of willingness and desire to get on the ball and make things tick. You had Paul McMillan, he was probably Dundee's man of the match game last night, and have a good performance from him, a little bit of lucky not to score. But I think permutations from a Dundee persuasion I looked at when Luke McCowan is taking a free kick instead of Charlie Adam. I mean, you've got a renowned man in terms of scoring goals in Charlie Adam, and he's nowhere near it. Well, he is beside Luke McCowan, but Luke McCowan took the shot. That infuriated a few Dundee fans, I noticed in social media. Obviously, you've got the crowd against strikers right now as well. You've got Danny Millen playing, and to credit to Danny Millen, because he has done very well for Dundee in a short space of time. He has had COVID issues and injury issues to seek. So, from that point of view, there has been a frustration that he hasn't been scoring a lot of goals lately either. But then you've got Lee Griffiths coming at the park doing very little, despite Dundee saying publicly to me in front of my face on Monday that they want to go and sign him on a longer-term deal beyond this month. Well, when you're not playing well against sides such as Livingston, that's your addition. That's your addition to James McPake, but you should be here well after January, beg your pardon. And Jason Cummings, we spoke about this in the show last night. That's probably going to be his last time in a Dundee shirt last night, just because he'll either go to Woodfield in Northern Ireland or wait a club in Australia. I think it's Central Marine.
Mariners,
is it?
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
So there's them, but also Dundee were missing Ashcroft and Sweeney, and when you're missing players and defenders like that, you're always going to be under a huge amount of trouble. And Livingston exploited that at every possible given opportunity, and also with Jordan Marshall going off with an injury as well. So James McPake very much has got his problems to seek right now. Let's not beat around the bush here. A lot of Dundee fans were very much infuriated with the outcome last night, and I was having a look at various feeds related to Dundee Football Club, and they were all going McPake out. That's what Dundee fans are like right now.
Yeah, that's the fickle sort of nature of football. I think I remember prior to the 5-0 Ross County home defeat as well. It was things weren't too bad, but I think from since then it's kind of had sort of fits and spurts, but that defensive record as well. I think they are sort of toiling for a centre back. Do you think James McPake will be given funds to try and get other players in? Obviously, we're saying potentially Griffiths loan end in or deal, whatever it is. Hard to know scenario. Cummins going away. Obviously, Killian Sheridan was on the radio at the weekend saying he's hoping to be back for May, so he's out for the rest of the season. That can only really leaves you Jakubiak and Mullen. Do you think they'll look to sign a striker, or if you were McPake, would you advise to kind of sign defensive players first?
The question was asked by myself on Monday to James McPake: who do you want to sign in what positions? Because I asked him initially about a striker, and he was very tight-lipped in that regard. I don't think he appreciated the question, to be honest with you. But back on the original point, and I mean, I think he'll want players in every position. Centre-half and striker will be the main priorities, but you won't admit that publicly. Because, I mean, centre-half-wise, they've got nobody in yet. That's where a lot of Dundee fans frustrated. James McPake has been on record by saying that he has been frustrated with the dealings in the transfer market. He was in for Sam Cosgrove, obviously, and that fell through at the 11th hour. So he hasn't had his problems to seek, and he's not getting a lot of work right now. He's blamed it on COVID, but I think there's a lot of other things than COVID at this precise moment in time. I'm going to be brutally on that.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear sort of leader kind of blame COVID and get into it rather than Boris Johnson. But anyway, this is not a politics show. We've got a fabulous State of Mind politics show that you can get involved with. Our penultimate game tonight sees us talk about 10-man Ross County putting 3 past Jenna Thompson-Steelman, who had equalised in the match through Jordan Roberts. Jenna, of course, I will have to come to you first on this. Graham Alexander said his Motherwell side threw the game away after Ross County's red card because it softened up his team mentally. As a supporter, what's your take on last night's defeat?
It's typical Motherwell. We are far too complacent. When we play bottom 6 sides, especially those in the bottom 4 more specifically, we just say it'll be a walk in the park. Easy 2-0, 3-0 us. We don't really need to put much effort in. And I think these teams have kind of clocked onto that because it's been happening consistently. It happened against Accies at Valentine's Day last season. It's happened against Ross County a couple of times as well. We got hammered 3-0 by Dundee as well. And it's happened a lot more times, even under Stephen Robinson, but I can't remember exact scores. But the boys need to realise that if they're wanting to challenge for Europe, they need to actually put the work in. Those are the games that matter more, in my book anyway, because those are the ones you could feasibly get an easy 3 points from. Again, when Celtic or Rangers come to Third Park, it's a complete write-off. You're like, right, okay, we're clearly not going to get 3 points for this. What about the other 9 teams even? What can we do against them? And it's your Ross Counties, your Dundees, Dundee Uniteds, Johnstons, Livingstons. Those are the games you have to win. And the sooner these guys realise that, the better. Don't get me wrong, we've had good results against these sides before this season, but the boys are far too complacent. We do it all the time. That's kind of one of the reasons why we end up drawing 2 each with St Man before Christmas there. And again, it became, we're 2-0 up. No way they'll score 3. It's fine. We can take the pressure off. No. All it took was a penalty for them and a good chance at goal, and it went in. And that was it. 3 points down to 1 in an instant. A lot of the guys just don't seem to see like that these are more important. A lot of them will put great effort into games against like your Aberdeens, your Hibs, your Hearts, the Old Firm and whatnot, the so-called big teams. I don't like calling any team big or small. That's why I'm saying so-called before anyone gets mad at me in the comments. But like, they need to realise that all games are just as important. And the sooner Alexander can drill that into the guys' heads, the better, because you'd think that would just be common knowledge at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's rousing if Motherwell want to clip that up and play that in their video analysis in terms of the views of a supporter in terms of, get the finger out. I'm going to flip it coming to you, Dave, in terms of, although obviously for Motherwell, it's a defeat which obviously Graham Alexander wasn't happy with. I'm going to say Ross County overcame a lot of adversity in this match. First half injuries to Hungbo, one of the star wingers, and David Cancola, with his replacement, Jordan Tilson, being sent off at the game being level. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. Regan Charles Cook, the other winger superstar, stepped up and added his 5th and 6th league goals to win it for Ross County. How big a win is this for Ross County?
Yeah, massive, mate. And I must say, I think the pursuit started for Marky Mackay's side when Motherwell were just a 10-man subbing at Graham Alexander, of course, knows his post-match interview. But on to County, very well-worked 3 points, showed the resilience, as you rightly alluded to there, and got their just rewards. And that's a couple of times now that Ross County have been up against it, but have shown enough character and mentality about them to go and get a result out of somewhere. And I think it's only the Glasgow 2 that have actually beaten Ross County in the latest instalment of fixtures. So that's pretty good growth from a Staggy's perspective. And I'll put my neck in the line right now and say I don't think Ross County will be in any danger of going down now. I think that's a well-worked victory for them last night. I think there's bigger problems at Dens Park and McDermott Park right now. Also, Ross County will get carried away, and they've got a lot of big games coming up. But yeah, that's a very well-earned victory for Marky Mackay's side last night, and obviously good for Regan Charles Cook and Jordan Tilson got sent off, but good for Regan Charles Cook to score a brace, and obviously they got an own goal, so they couldn't have worked any better for Ross County. Marky Mackay will be a happy man, and they're getting a lot of big wins right now, and they need to keep that going now.
Yeah, Reagan Charles Cook, I think when I last checked, he's out of contract at the end of the season. I'm sure he's a player that a few teams in Scotland will have their eye on, given the his performances this season. Looking at, I think there's a few Celtic fans in the comments saying, generally they'd want you to become a Celtic fan. Hopefully you can maybe enjoy your football a bit more. Obviously after having to be subjected to that last night. Motherwell's next few games, it doesn't get any easier, although Morton at home in the Scottish Cup, potential cup upset there. Hibs at home, Hearts away. What sort of action do you think you'll get from Alexander's side, Jenna?
They need to come out strong. If we get put out the Scottish Cup by a team that's placed 8th in a relegation battle for the Championship, it says a lot, especially as Morton almost did it to us last season when they were in the exact same boat and we were fighting relegation at the same time. Morton are a good side at times, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm trying to think back and what players will have been here with us long enough to remember them. But you know how Dougie Emery's obviously the new manager at Morton. For any of the boys that can remember that far back, I think the only ones that were playing for us when he was still a player was Liam Grimshaw and Jake Carroll. I don't think there's any of the other ones, which makes me feel really old saying that, so that's only 3 years old, like yesterday. But if they're able to say this is like a Hamilton run team, playing that bit a bit, get motivated. Obviously, he's not going to be playing, but it's different things like that to motivate players because they need something to get that fire going. The boys used to get really amped up for an Aki's derby, maybe playing that a bit. I don't know. For the rest of the games, they need to come out fighting because if we are going to challenge Europe, as I was saying before, you need to work for it. That's a privilege, especially for a side like Motherwell. I mean, I love my wee team to bits, do not get me wrong, but I know that is not a guarantee every season. It's not something we push for every season. And if I'm being honest, we don't really last long in Europe. But if you're wanting to be the team that actually changes that, prove it in the pitch. Not in words we could challenge for Europe, but whatever. You need to actually prove to the fans and themselves that they are worthy of playing, they can play, and that they deserve to play.
Yeah. Again, Celtic fans are loving the passion you're showing for your team tonight. But lastly, we will take a look at the game at Tannadice, which saw St Mirren end their 11-game streak without a win to beat Dundee United 2-1. It was Jay Anderson and Eamon Brophy who put the Buddies 2-0 ahead with 60 minutes played on the clock, but a late Alan Power own goal made it a nervy finish. Dave, as a resident Tayside correspondent, was this last night's biggest shock result?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you why, because when you look at the game as a whole, St Mirren started in the front foot. They scored that goal through a fantastic strike by Henderson there. And then they nearly went 2-0 up soon afterwards because they had the ball in the net through Kilty, which was thwarted by the offside flag, but it was a well-worked move in the lead up to that goal, which ultimately was chalked off by the linesman. So St Mirren were on the front foot and in the driving seat, basically. And St Mirren obviously went 2-0 ahead on the hour, and by all accounts were fairly comfortable. St Mirren are a draw specialists in the league this year, and I mean, there's been a lot of times where they've been a little bit unlucky in games, and it was good for Jim Goodwin to get a monkey off the back a little bit and get a well-earned 3 points again. Obviously, Dundee United responded for that power own goal, but it was a little too late. And I must admit, I'm a big Tam Courts fan. Everybody knows that. But if I'm going to have two constructive criticisms of Tam Courts, it's this: Kieran Freeman should have started it, as far as I'm concerned, and also the attack could have been better. I'd have liked to have seen Nicky Clark and Mark McNulty play. There was obviously the clamour regarding Tony Watt, but I'm led to believe that the team was announced before Tony Watt took part in training, which was why he didn't start last night.
Yeah, you did mention Tony Watt, and obviously we'll come to Jenna. I know as a former member of the Tony Watt fan club.
I'm biting my tongue.
Tam Courts did bemoan his side's poor finishing in his post-match comments. In terms of Tony Watt, what sort of player are Dundee United getting? Obviously, he kind of played on the left this season. What's that, sorry?
Is the type of player. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't think we were back talking about John Suter again, but here we are. No, in terms of his finishing, Is that something, obviously, we've seen him break through the scene at Celtic, obviously, with that goal against Barcelona in the Champions League, which I'm sure he still dines out on occasion. But what sort of player are Dundee United getting? Jenna, sorry, coming to you, yeah. What sort of player are they getting, yeah?
I was reading the comments there and she was saying that, but yeah, Tony Watt, I mean, all jokes aside about the whole pattern and whatnot, he is a good player. I will say, though, a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, that's Motherwell going to be absolutely hammered now. That's them, game's a bogey for them. But I read a stat, and I don't know if this is fully accurate, I would need to double check, but he did about roughly 70 appearances for Motherwell since we signed him in 2020 till now. And in that time, he scored about 19 goals, I want to say. I'm sure it's 19. Compared to Kevin Van Veen, that just signed in the summer, 17 appearances and 7 goals. Put it this way, what would you rather have at Dundee United when you think about it like that? Don't get me wrong, Tony's a great player. And they will get good use of it at Dundee. I mean, all I seen when Dundee signed him was thinking, thank God a striker that can actually score. Yes, give us goals, Tony. We don't care how much. Give us them, please. Things like that. So, will he get a game? I don't know. I kind of don't think he will, to be honest. I think he could easily turn into a bench warmer. So I hope that as well. The Clark Amber glasses are coming back on here.
Dave's bursting. He's getting involved here.
Yep, go.
Jenna, sorry. Do you think Motherwell need to say you striker?
No. I think we're more than comfortable with Kevin Van Veen and Kane Willie's ability in the wing.
Okay.
And plus, we've also got Connor Shields. We've also got Sean Goss as well. He's been kind of playing about the midfield area. We've just signed that boy from Celtic whose name I forgot. It's Liam something. I think it's Liam Shaw. Liam Shaw, yeah. I was thinking of Grimshaw there when I said Liam. I think that's probably where I got confused with that one there. But I mean, if that guy, I don't think he scored for Celtic yet. I haven't seen him play for Celtic, I won't lie. So people in the comments can tell me if he scored any or not. I don't think he did. But these are all talented players that could easily get goals in for us. Obviously, your striker is your main source of a goal. But you also need to have a good, strong attacking midfield to back up the striker as well. I think we're more than fine without Watt.
More than fine without Watt. Again, I was going to ask you, Dave, because obviously Jenna said doesn't believe that Tony Watt is going to feature for Dundee United. I kind of think the opposite. I think when McNulty's loan expires, I don't think they'll renew it. Obviously, Nicky Clark has been doing well there, but I think Tony Watt will surely be a kind of mainstay. What do you think?
Well, he's signed until 2025 at Dundee United Football Club, so that just goes to show and signify that he'll be a long-term asset towards Dundee United. I think he'll be starting on Saturday when Dundee United travel to Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, because, as I alluded to in my earlier answer, the reason why he didn't start the game last night is he took part in training after the team was announced. Apparently, the paperwork and all that was very last minute, and he had a little bit of media activity to do Monday afternoon as well. So he only did about 45 minutes worth of training on Monday, which was the reason why he didn't start last night and came on. So I think Saturday you'll see Tony Watt in the team, and he will get to go and make an impression, especially because he'll have to go and prove a few doubters wrong, and he'll have to go and cast his own eye over people, especially after what's happened with Motherwell. Obviously, Motherwell fans will look at this and say there's a little bit of a snake mentality with regards to Tony Watt right now. They'll wish him all the very best, but they'll hope he doesn't go and score 20, 30 goals a season. And from Tony Watt's perspective, if he can go and hit the ground running Saturday, that's a huge starting point for Tony Watt.
Honestly, the word snake's getting chucked around this show tonight like an invitation to a party at Downing Street. So free and easy, certainly. But again, we'll just kind of end on St Mirren. Obviously, we've got a few minutes left as well. How do you think this result? You had mentioned earlier, Jenna, around you were kind of surprised that there was no pressure on Jim Goodwin. Do you think you can see them sort of getting a bit of an upturn in form, although they do have 3 away games next in terms of Ayr in the Cup? Sorry, not 2 away games. Ayr away in the Cup, Aberdeen at home, and then Dundee away. Do you think this can be a springboard to some success?
Definitely. I mean, those are all very easily winnable games for St Mirren. That's not, no offence to those teams, obviously, but those are games they should be able to look to get 3 points from. If not, again, more draws, but that's not really helpful. Again, still surprised there's been no Goodwin out tweets or anything like that. I mean, 1 win from October, that says quite a lot about the side. I mean, they've got some really good players. I mean, I don't think Charles Dunn really does get a game for them, to be fair. And again, Clark Amberglass is coming out here. But they've got him, they've got Curtis Main, they've got Eamon Brophy. Those are all really good players. And have they still got Jamie McGrath?
Yeah, he wasn't involved last night, but what I would say on top of that, and I think you're right, Jenna, is I was impressed with the boy Henderson as well. Took his goal very well. He was really good in the midfield first at minute last night.
They have the ability, they just don't seem to be chasing it enough. I mean, I know they had some hard games, obviously, around about Christmas time with Celtic, and then immediately into face Rangers. I wouldn't wish that on any team, to be honest, because those are some heavy games to play, especially if on a COVID depleted squad. And I know that will probably be the reason why there has been no good one out tweets, because if a COVID outbreak happens, it happens. There's nothing really you can do about that. But they really need to turn it around, and fast, I think.
Of course. We'll have the time check from Scott Howe. Thank you for that. It's time for Emmerdale and Coronation Street. Double exciting time. So yes, that's all we have time for on tonight's show. Thank you for joining us, and please tune in for tomorrow's show. So have a good evening.